Hello and welcome to News Centre. I'm Shereen Bhan. Impossible to Possible, a book authored by Maruti Suzuki chairman RC Bhargava, highlights the incredible success story of Maruti, which made India the third largest automobile sector in the world, and more importantly, opened up a path for the country to become a stronger manufacturing hub. However, India's manufacturing sector has historically been a laggard, contributing only 13% to GDP in 2022, as opposed to the 54% that we get from services. The big question is, will India take advantage of the favorable position that it finds itself in on the back of China's tensions with the West? Joining me now is Maruti Suzuki chairman RC Bhargava, also the author of the book Impossible to Possible, as we count down to Budget 2024. Mr. Bhargava, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us. You and I spoke when you authored your last book, and of course this continues with the story of Maruti Suzuki and how it became the behemoth that it has. As we count down to Budget 2024, do you believe that today the manufacturing breakout moment that we've all been waiting for the last so many decades is on the anvil?
I think the answer now lies with the entire people who promote industries, who manage industries, because the government has gone a long way in creating a much more conducive atmosphere for industry to work. You know, it's compared to what we started with and worked with for a long period of our lives. It's very, very different from what exists today. What Maruti, this book which I've written, is really based on what really made the difference in our manufacturing processes and systems, which made the company so much more competitive and so much better in terms of overall efficiency of functioning than other companies in this area. And the object of writing this was to offer an alternative to managements in India, India Inc., to look at it, because it creates a win-win for everybody, including the management, including the company, including the workers, and of course the nation.
Right, Mr. Bhargava, as you pointed out, that the environment has changed significantly. The government has brought down taxes. It has announced a PLI scheme across different sectors with the hope of boosting manufacturing. Of course, geopolitically, we've seen many changes take place, including the big one, which is the move towards de-risking the supply chain and moving the supply chain entirely or to some extent out of China. Now, you talked about what companies need to do. In light of the examples that you gave us through what Maruti has been able to achieve, at this point in time, where do you believe India Inc. is falling short, and what are the gaps that India Inc. needs to bridge?
I think, Shereen, the issue is that we have been following the practices which we have learned and which we have in various ways picked up from the Western manufacturing world and the education on manufacturing which we have got from the West. The West has lost its manufacturing competitive abilities. The manufacturing center of gravity has shifted very much to the countries in Asia and the eastern part of Asia. And the reason for doing that is fundamentally that what Japan did was that they recognized that other than the engineers and the managements of companies, a company has about 70% of its employees who are workers. And they understood that these 70% people acquire a great deal of knowledge and insights into the manufacturing systems and processes as practiced on the shop floor. And that this knowledge, if the managements can get this these people involved in parting with this knowledge in a way which can improve manufacturing, there can be continuous improvements in what's happening. That Kaizen concept comes in of continuous improvement in making everything better. And this is the difference between what happens in India, where we don't recognize that workers can contribute anything different from what managements do, and what is actually being done in other countries.
Right. Mr. Bhargava, we're also now in an era of heightened digitization. We're talking about not just Industry 4.0, but we're talking about an AI era. When we talk about India's competitive advantage and competitive strength, in light of these developments, in light of these changes, how are we positioned to make good of this opportunity and leverage what could potentially be a strength?
Shereen, I think digitization, AI are very much there, which should be used in the manufacturing processes. But essentially, I believe they can be used for better designing, quicker product development, and more important also perhaps, better decision making, making decisions more data-based, looking at all aspects and being objective in decision making. But when it comes to issues like whether people work as partners or work as individuals, whether teamwork is stronger or individual work is stronger, whether for building supply chains you have to treat your vendors as transactional people or as people interdependent in the company. How do you motivate workers to come on time and not take absence through various holidays? All this can't be done by AI.
Yes, there are some limitations to how AI can be used, but of course it could enhance productivity and efficiency. But Mr. Bhargava, let's talk about creating tier one suppliers across different sectors. The auto sector has done well on that, on the back of a success story like Maruti. But for us to be able to replicate that across different sectors, what do you believe is the need of the hour today, your prescription?
When we started developing our supply chain and vendors, because we had to develop everything, there was zero availability in India when we started. We completely changed the process and the relationship between the vendors and the buyer, that means the OEM. And we adopted this system where we said that we have to work as partners with them, because essentially the suppliers of components and materials and the users, which is the OEM, are highly interdependent for their future growth and success. And if they both realize that they are interdependent on each other and work in a spirit of partnership and trying to help each other, then the gains which you get in overall efficiency are far greater than if you maintain an arm's length transactional relationship. The rest of industry supply chains today is really transactional.
Yes, a less opportunistic approach to building out supply chains. But Mr. Bhargava, over the 4 decades of starting the Maruti story and building out the Maruti story from where it was to where it is today, what do you see as the pivot to the future now? I mean, it is a very different company from 1981 to where it finds itself today. But if I were to ask you to envision the future for Maruti Suzuki, what would it look like?
See, the change which has happened is that we have moved from a government PSU to an absolutely independent, listed company operating with the mix of Japanese and Indian management techniques. And I think the future we will only strengthen this type of working where we will look at the best practices available anywhere and build these into the company, but all the time keeping in mind that our DNA lies in having total teamwork within the company, with our vendors, with our dealers, with our associates. We strongly believe that the more trust we have amongst everybody and the closer we work with each other, recognizing our independence on each other, the better the future will be.
Well, from impossible to possible, that is the Maruti story. And in many ways, the hope is that Indian manufacturing will mirror the same from here. Mr. Bhargava, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us here on CNBC TV18 to take us through your prescription for what is needed at this point in time. A lot has changed. India Inc. needs to focus on building out not just its supply chain in a transactional fashion, but do much more in terms of trust, transparency and improvement. Thanks very much for your time. We will head into a break, but up next, with just a few days left for the interim budget, the India Venture and Alternate Capital Association, the IVC, has said that its top concerns relate to tax rates and investment in alternate investment funds. We speak with Ashley Menezes, the Vice Chairperson of IVCA, when we return.